Good afternoon. My name is Dylan Schrader, and I'm about to give my speech for speech 1315, and this is my audience. And now that I'm about to start, I'm going to let them go sit down. All right, thank you guys for being here. Today, my speech is going to be over America's pastime, which is baseball. Um, First, I'm going to give a brief history of the game, and then dive into some of the rules of gameplay, some of the basic rules. Um, I plan to help give an understanding to those who might not be familiar with the game. Although many people view baseball as a sport lacking excitement, it's been an American favorite since its beginning, and all who understand the sport can't deny its enjoyment. Abner Doubleday is credited with the founding of modern-day baseball. The game has changed a lot since he founded it in Cooperstown, New York in 1839. Alexander Cartwright developed the rules of baseball in 1845, which have also greatly changed over the years. When he first wrote the rules, you had 8 balls for a walk instead of 4. You also got like 8 foul balls. Now you get, or you had foul balls didn't count as strikes, and nowadays they count as a strike against you. And you could also catch the ball on a bounce, and it would be an out. And nowadays you have to catch the ball in midair for it to be recorded as an out. Major League Baseball was not established until 1903. Many leagues were created prior to Major League Baseball, but they had many strikes, labor issues, players and managers not being able to agree on salaries, and none of them really worked out. I'm going to transition more into the history of what led to Major League Baseball and what it is today. In the beginning of Major League Baseball, gambling was a major issue. Players would bet on themselves or bet against themselves to win extra money on top of their salaries. And the most famous incident of guys betting on themselves or against themselves was in the 1919 World Series, when 8 players on the Chicago Black Sox conspired to lose the World Series for a large sum of money. The first commissioner of baseball was implemented in 1920 after this issue by the name of Kennesaw Mountain Landis. And in that following year, 1921, he expelled all 8 players from Major League Baseball for life. Gambling was a problem in baseball, but only one of many. Discrimination was also prevalent in the beginning of Major League Baseball. Baseball did not allow colored players to participate in the game until 1947, when Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. Jackie may have been the first colored player, but it took a while for the rest of the league to follow. Only 6 Major League teams had colored players on their roster in 1953. By the late 1950s, every team had a colored player on their roster, and it became normal to sign players of all races. Baseball endured one last tough time on its way to what it is today, and that was known as the steroid era. The steroid era was a time where many players were under scrutiny for taking performance-enhancing drugs like steroids or HGH, which would make you stronger, be able to hit the ball farther. It would also increase recoveries from injuries, and so on. Interest of the game of baseball was dropping from a fan standpoint in the early 1990s. The 8th and final strike in Major League Baseball occurred in 1994, when half the season was canceled, over 940 games, including the postseason and the World Series. The strike was a result of labor strikes and players and managers not agreeing on salaries. In the following year, 1995, they finally came to an agreement and Major League Baseball came back. In that same year, Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire both broke the single-season home run record, and they were both under high scrutiny for performance-enhancing drugs. So in a way, this new steroid era, which was an era where it was more runs, more home runs, more big guys, power hitters, high-scoring offense, it kind of brought back the attractiveness for the fans because that's what they wanted to see, the excitement, the home runs. So in a way, the steroid era actually kind of brought back the attractiveness of baseball. All these events obviously have led baseball up to what it is today. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better than what it was in the past. Now that I've gone through a history of Major League Baseball, I'll just go over some simple rules in baseball. So obviously here you have your bat, which you use when you're on offense to hit the ball, which is delivered by the pitcher who's on defense. I have a glove here, which is used when you're on defense. All 9 players in the field will wear one of these. usually different kinds depending on what position. And then here I have a pair of batting gloves, which are used to cover your hands so they don't callous. But the object of baseball is to score the most runs. You have 9 innings. Each inning consists of a half inning where one team is on offense and one team is on defense. When on offense, you try to get runners on base. And once they're on base, you try to hit them in so they cross home safely, which would result in a run. When on defense, your objective is to stop the runners at all costs from making it home safely. So that's a basic explanation of how to play the game. And now I'm just going to open it up for questions that y'all have or anything that you were wondering about in my presentation.
I have a question. Is the high school baseball field the same size as a Major League Baseball field?
The high school baseball field and Major League field are the same in the sense of the baselines, or from home plate to first and first to second, those are the same dimensions. And the pitcher's mound to home plate is the same dimensions. But the outer fence in the outfield is going to be different for every stadium, even in the majors. Some fields might be 400 to center, some might be 420. Those can vary greatly on all fields. But in terms of high school and major leagues, the diameter of the inner diamond, the infield, is going to be the same.
I have a question. I've been to a few baseball games and I've heard the term tagging up, but what exactly does that mean?
That's a good question. Tagging up, so in baseball, when a pop fly is hit and there's runners on base, the runners cannot just take off while the ball is just floating in midair. They have to wait for the outfielder to catch the ball in order to run. So tagging up is whenever you wait for that ball to be caught and then you run. That's what tagging up is called. It's a slang term that baseball players use.
I have a question. Do you really think that performance-enhancing drugs changed baseball?
I do, and I mentioned that in my speech. And the reason I think that is because without, quote unquote, the steroid era, I'm not sure if we would have had those high-scoring couple of years that we did have with the Mark McGuire's, the Sammy Sosa's, the Barry Bonds, which I didn't mention, but Barry Bonds has the all-time record for home runs in a single season, and he's obviously one of the ones who's under the highest scrutiny for performance-enhancing drugs. But that was, even though it wasn't necessarily right to be taking drugs to increase your performance, that's what the fans wanted to see, and it potentially saved the sport that was dying quickly before the steroid era. If that's all the questions y'all have, if y'all just walk up here so you can be seen. Thank y'all for coming out today, and